This is an Empty Closet Radio podcast. Get more at facebook.com/emptyclosetradio. So careful.
Stop laughing at me. It's not even funny.
Yes, it is.
Hi, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sam.
And this is The Empty Closet.
The show for everyone, whether you're in the closet
Or out and proud.
or somewhere in between.
101.9 Coast FM, you're in The Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. You're joining us here on this lovely Easter Tuesday. Sam, did you know that if we were living in Tasmania, we would have a public holiday today?
I do know, because someone at work today was complaining that we don't get a public holiday. Why don't we get an Easter Tuesday, Sam? And I said, because we don't live in Tasmania.
Yes, well, and most of us are not retired and growing apples like they do in Tasmania. That's what they do. Wait, they have some good lobster farms too.
Let's take the microphone away from Andrew for a little while. Now, if you do want to catch up on any of the past podcasts, just be sure to look for the Empty Closet podcast. Look for Empty Closet on your favourite radio app. Hit the subscribe button or look us up on social media, the Big Blue Book of Faces, Empty Closet Radio. Hit the like button or at @emptycloset_AU, all lowercase, on the blue Tweety bird. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet. Andrew's not allowed near the microphone.
Empty Closet Radio. Listen to us using your TuneIn radio app on your smartphone. Very smart.
101.9 Coast FM, you're in The Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Sam, we have just celebrated Easter weekend, which to many is a very, it's just a good excuse to have a really long weekend filled with lots of chocolate. What did you do over the weekend?
Well, I slept a lot because fatigue management for me is important. I also went with you to the Handmade and Crafts Expo, which was fun, not too far from your place. We walked over.
Yeah, we talked about this thing last week, that it was coming up, and I thought, it might be fun to go along. I had no idea what to expect. I was actually expecting maybe a bit more like wooden things, because when I think about crafts and handmade, I kind of think, people were like making things out of wood, but that wasn't really what it was.
That's because it's much more expensive to get wood-making tools and materials than it is to get fabric and paper, which is what most of what we saw was a lot of fabric craft, some paper craft and jewellery. Although there was woodwork there as well.
Yeah, there were a couple of stalls that had wooden things, and the wooden stuff was just like immaculately made. And well, actually, I would say pretty much everything there was immaculately made, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty fabulous. I found a lot of sellers I would like to go back to. I also bought myself capsicum jam, so I'm having that on chicken sandwiches.
The one thing that I will share with you that I've noticed at these little craft things that you've taken me to a couple of times now is that there are all these products that solve problems that I didn't even realize existed. So like there was this one thing that was like, it was a sewn together kind of like a basket that you put on your pram, like while you're pushing it around town, and it's called like a pram caddy. And I don't know, you put all your things in it and it like holds everything all together, like all your little loose bits and bobs. I didn't even know that was a real problem. So real eye-opener going to one of these craft day things.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I have to admit, if I had a sewing kit, there would probably be a lot. There's a lot of things of use to sewers, not just made by sewers, but there were things for particular crafts. Like there was lots of stuff for kids that you may or may not think of, like the pram caddy or, baby togs or whatever.
By far, the coolest product, though, was to solve a problem that I had thought of. I thought it was a problem beforehand, but I never thought of the solution, and there's this really cool solution. Can I tell everyone about it, Sam? It's, so, like when I first moved to Queensland, I had no idea that this was a problem. When you pour yourself a glass of cold drink in a wine glass with a stem, and because the drink is cold, it makes the whole glass go a little bit cold, and then condensation, because of the moisture in the air, condensation forms on the surface of the glass, drips down to the bottom, and like you basically have a glass with like a puddle underneath it, even though there is no liquid leaking out of the glass. It's crazy. I'd never seen that before I moved to Cairns. Like, I'd probably never lived anywhere where there was enough moisture in the air to make that happen. So anyway, this is a real problem. It turns out that other people have experienced this as well. And the main issue that I've come across is that if you have coasters, which usually solve this problem by mopping up the extra, condensation, if you have coasters, they tend to stick to the bottom of the glass because there's too much water for them to really take up.
Creates a vacuum seal.
That is true. Very scientific, Sam. And so then you end up with your coaster like getting halfway to your mouth and then dropping into your lap. Whereas this solution that I saw at the craft day, someone had made some coasters that actually it's like a little pocket that slips onto the bottom of the glass, and it travels with the glass up to your mouth, does not slip off, and is made of like a material that will like soak up the water. It's amazing.
And they also made it so that the pairs, they sold them in pairs and you could like mix and match, but the pairs didn't match each other. They thematically linked, but the idea was that you could just have different mats for your glass, so that at like a party or, you know, a social gathering, everybody would know which glass was whose because it would already be marked. So it solves two problems in one.
And you know what I felt like afterwards, Sam? I felt like maybe I could make some of my own. Like, it would be a good little craft project for myself. The other thing that I did on Easter, you'll think that this is very typical Andrew, I decided it would be a good idea to have some hot cross buns, Sam. And I managed to burn them, like completely burn them. I managed to use the oven to do them though, to do the burning. Yes, it was quite the achievement. I did manage to, save them at the end of the day.
That's really the main thing. The only other thing that I thought was really worth mentioning is I saw a puppy go down a slide, and the puppy loved it, and that was very cute.
Yes, that was at the craft day as well. Puppies can be trained to jump up onto the top of the slide and slide down. Very cute. You're on 101.9 Coast FM in the Empty Closet.
Where did you come from, lady? And ooh, I want you to take me there.
Empty Closet Radio. Like us on Facebook.
101.9 Coast FM, you're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Now, Sam, I'm not much of a reality TV person. I feel like my reality is like a drama anyway, so I tend not to watch it much on TV, but I know that reality TV is like super, super popular, and one of the shows that got reality TV really started way, way back was Survivor. Do you remember like watching the first couple of episodes of Survivor when it was like super exciting? No one had seen anything like it before.
Look, to be honest, I've never really watched much reality TV, but like I'm quite familiar with the concept because you hear a lot about it, and there's always been controversies.
Well, the latest controversy is, I think, quite serious, actually. It has ramifications that extend far beyond the show, like far beyond the time when those people leave the island. Now, this was something that Sam had brought to my attention, actually, Sam, about someone being outed on the island.
So, for those of you who haven't seen the news on this, it's not like they broadcast it as it happens. So this happened something like 3 months ago, and it was broadcast on national TV the other night. Survivor contestant, his name is Zeke Smith, I hope that's the correct pronunciation, was outed as transgender by another contestant. Basically, the other contestant was trying to avoid being eliminated at like the tribal council where they snuff your flame out and it's like you die, except you don't die because it's TV. But this guy was this was like a season where lots of people came back, like they were return competitors. So it wasn't like all new competitors.
So was it like All Stars, kind of like that?
Yeah, like an All-Stars event. And the particular guy who outed him, this was his third time round. He'd never made the tribal council, which apparently is like a thing. And so, you know, this was his last chance to make it. He's the only person who's 3 times, you know, been up for it. And he found out he was up for elimination, and he basically said, you know, Zeke isn't who you all think he is. He's been lying to you all and misleading you. And there's a couple of things about this that were really bad. Number one, this idea that trans people are misleading you by not explicitly telling you that their genitals might not be what you think they are, or whatever. Like, it's not actually your business, but people feel real betrayed if you don't tell them, and that's rubbish.
Is it the same kind of betrayal as I feel when someone tells me that they have a huge penis and then they don't?
No.
Different kind of betrayal.
Yes, because yours is because they're actually lying to you. Trans people are not obliged to tell you that they're trans. You know, so quite different situations, Andrew. Pat. The other thing that is really worth mentioning, because it's something that we've talked a little bit about on the closet before, but doesn't always come up, you know, in the name of solidarity. But the guy who outed him was gay. Was a gay man, and we don't often talk about the stigma that the T in the alphabet soup faces from the other letters, particularly the L and G and B, in the same way that we have biphobia in the community, but transphobia is generally quite a bit scarier in my experience. But you know, Zeke's talked about it. He's talked about how he's not really wild about the fact that he's had to come out, but, you know, people have people have given him the opportunity to speak. They haven't just spoken for him, which is nice.
It wasn't really his choice to come out. Do you reckon if this whole incident hadn't have occurred, would he have just like continued sailing on through? No one would have batted an eyelid.
Yeah, he is explicit about the fact that he has what they term passing privilege. He doesn't look like someone who you're not sure if they're cross-dressing or if they're, you know, he looks masculine, very, very typically masculine. But there was one quote particular that I thought was really relevant, because it reminds me of it makes me think about some of the things you've said, Andrew, about coming out and how you feel freer for coming out and you don't understand why anyone would. And his quote, word for word, was, "Many gay people consider coming out a moment of liberation because sharing their sexual orientation with the world causes them to be seen more authentically. Often the opposite is true for trans people. When we share our gender history, many see us less authentically, doubting, probing, or denying our identities." So, like, if you come out as gay, most of the time, it doesn't quite gel with, say, my experience as a bisexual woman, because people still doubt it. But if you come out as gay, people go, oh, okay, you know, like, unless they react horribly. Like, they don't just keep going necessarily, no, it's just because are you sure you haven't met a girl? And keep doubting everything about you. But if someone comes out as trans, well, you're not really a woman then, are you? You know, or, are you sure you're not, you know, you don't really understand because, you know, you were a man and all that kind of stuff.
It's like you have a lifetime full of people making excuses about why you may not understand something or may not be like what they expect them to be like.
Yeah, and it's quite invalidating. So props to Zeke, who's, you know, handled this very well, and props to the news outlets that have actually quoted him rather than just talking about the shock, and also props to his tribal mates, because the thing was, all of them voted out the guy who outed him. So actually on the show, like, they were all like, oh, gasp, astonish, you know, but thought the other guy had done the wrong thing and rallied around him and rallied around Zeke and kept him in the show.
That's awesome. That's exactly what, like, a good close-knit community should do.
Exactly, but, you know, the end result of this, I've had a few trans friends posting about it, is that you shouldn't out people. Even if you think it's fine, that's other people's story to tell. You don't get to tell it for them. Especially not to keep yourself being voted off Survivor. You're on 101.9 Coast FM, and you're in the Empty Closet.
Empty Closet Radio, because no one else wants to be stuck in the closet. God.
101.9 Coast FM, you're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam, and we were just talking about, you know, people getting voted off Survivor. There is something that is like really more, it's not really like Survivor, it's a little bit like Survivor, happening over in Chechnya at the moment.
I'm going to take the microphone off Andrew because that's terrible. It's not like Survivor at all. We have talked about it briefly on the show. It's not really something to joke about. Chechnya does not appreciate gay men, says that there can't be gay men because they would have been murdered by their families because, you know, great shame, but is now rounding up gay men and torturing them and putting them into concentration camps. There's stories from survivors. There's death threats to the only independent news journal in Russia that's reporting on this. You know, there's hundreds of people missing. There's people who've fled the country. They can't get asylum until they get to the other country. They can't apply for it until they get there. You know, all those people who are like, asylum seekers need to go the proper route. There is no proper route. So it's a horrible, horrible situation. But the authorities in both Russia and Chechnya, because Chechnya is a territory of Russia, they're denying that this is happening.
So pretty much if I happened to live in a different part of the world, then I would basically be a refugee now.
Yes, because where you live is a luck of the draw, very much so. So it's all rather horrible.
It reminds me a little bit, like it echoes of what happened during World War II. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that during World War II they kind of like rounded up, you know, the Jews and anyone else who they thought were delinquents, including gay people. And the gay people were like labelled and sent to their own special area. They were labelled with a pink triangle, I think.
Yeah, they're labelled with the pink triangle, which has been reclaimed by many within the queer community. It is worth saying that these are largely actions that affected and at this stage are affecting gay men. This is not something that's affecting women at this point.
Do you think that's because there's like this, like it's okay for women to be gay, which is kind of, you know, it's like the straight male fantasy?
I think that's part of it, but these are also areas that are ruled by particularly misunderstood religious dogmas where women are lower than men. So it's kind of like it doesn't really matter what they do because they don't have the same status in the household. So it's twofold. One of them's the over-sexualization of women on other women because clearly they're only doing it for attention. And the other one is that it doesn't challenge a power dynamic. But, I mean, that's not to say that there aren't places in the world where gay women are suffering horrendously, because there are. But in this particular concentration camp, it disproportionately affects gay men. One point I do want to make that's something people don't like to remember about World War II is when the concentration camps were liberated, when survivors came out and there were Catholic priests and there were the Romani and, you know, the Jews and everybody who was sent there, they were all let free except the gay men who were largely put into other prisons, because you've got to remember that in most countries, most of the Allied countries, all of the Allied countries, I think, it was still illegal to be gay. So they were still considered criminals. They weren't sent back to their homes.
I'm kind of glad I didn't live back there at that time. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet. Let's listen to a bit of a happier song, Sam. Let's have some music to cheer us up.
I said I'd go with you. I regret it now. You said we'd take a trip. You had it figured out. And this is not
Empty Closet Radio, Facebook.com/Empty Closet Radio.
101.9 Coast FM, you're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. It has just been Easter. It's Easter Tuesday if we live in Hobart.
If we have any listeners down there.
Oh my gosh, we probably do actually. I've got friends all over the place. I'll tell them to listen to the podcast. Now, There's something very interesting that you brought up the other day, Sam. It's about Christians having lots of extra privileges around Easter. And I thought, what do you mean extra privileges? And then we started having a chat, and it was like, maybe there are some things that are Christian traditions that have permeated culture. Things like, we were talking about dyeing eggs. Like, did you get like little hard-boiled eggs and dye them like while you're at school? Did that happen for you?
Yeah, so when I was at school, like, okay, and in religious class, we learnt about Jesus and that, and in the rest of it, we didn't so much, but Easter was still like this celebration, you know, we were preparing for that in a way that we wouldn't prepare for Hanukkah or Ramadan or anything like that.
You mean you would actually talk about it?
Yeah. Like, oh my God, it's not invisible.
We didn't talk about, at my school that I went to down in Victoria, primary school anyway, we did not talk about any other holidays, just the Christian holidays. That was it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember hearing from someone who was reading something. This is how this came up. They're a teacher. And one of their co-workers was really grumpy because there was two Islamic families where the kids would need to duck out for a few minutes at certain times of the day to pray. And the teacher was getting very angry about this and saying, can you imagine the stink if Christian kids had asked for the same thing? And the other teacher went, well, Christian kids will never have to, because every Christian holiday and Christian holiday is a day off school. Like, Sundays are days off school, Christmas is a day off school, you know, all the important theological days for Christianity have become part of society because the people who created the modern society as we know it through fair means or foul were largely basing their theology on Christianity.
Do you think that we will ever not get rid of the Christian holidays out of our secular calendar, but like, do you think that eventually any of the holidays that we celebrate will like not be Christian, or like, you know, they might have a different time or something that's not based on the Christian calendar?
Well, there's things like Labor Day and Anzac Day and stuff in Australia that aren't based on a theological holiday. Like, it already happens, but I think we're more likely to see it go the other way with things like loss of penalty rates and, you know, eventually, you know, if the businesses are consistent, then say governments will have to be open 7 days a week, as in government offices, not things like the ambulance and the police and that. But if I want to call up, you know, my local representative, they'll be working 7 days a week because we'll have moved to a 7-day work week, you know. So rather than honouring more holidays or honouring non-Christian holidays, you know, we'll go the other way and we'll start to lose public holidays and lose weekends.
And we'll just honour no holidays. How cool would it be if you could like nominate your own like public holiday days to be like, yep, for me, my birthday is a public holiday for me? I think that would be great if you had like a set limit of them. You know, you can't go every Friday is my public holiday because I'm a Pastafarian and I worship pastor and dress as a pirate because that's our holy garb. If you haven't heard about Pastafarianism, you should look it up. It's hilarious. Have you been touched by his noodly appendage? Is there? Ramen, Andrew. Oh my God, I love it. Well, I'm going to go and investigate that. Let's listen to some music. You're on 101.9 Coast FM in the Empty Closet.
Empty Closet Radio, because no one wants to be stuck in the closet. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Now, Andrew was telling me about what he had to teach his co-workers. Today? Was it today?
It wasn't today. I thought that I'd had this conversation with one of my workmates like ages and ages ago, and they even like carried on conversation with me when I mentioned it again, like pretending like they knew what it was. So it just so that it, you know, let's clear the air. It revolves around people's roles in the bedroom.
Specifically gay men's roles in the bedroom.
Yeah, and basically how it came up in conversation is because my friends at work think that maybe I should, date someone, and so every time they see some boy on my social media thing that they think is cute, they're like, how about you and so? And I'm like, no, that will never work because we're both the same role in the bedroom.
You have to be so coy about this. I think you could use actual terms.
Okay, fine, we're both bottoms. Shut up. And so then, but I was like, I didn't know. I thought that I was using terms that would be understandable. Like, you know how people are like, sometimes they'll use euphemisms like picture and catch up. I was like, have you ever heard of that? I'm guessing maybe Sam hasn't heard of that because she is not able to compose herself.
It's more just the idea of like pulling your junk off and throwing it, like, and I mean, I get that if you wear a strap on, but if you actually have the inbuilt version.
So the other thing that I thought was fairly self-explanatory is like, when it's a very visual gag, so I'll try and explain it. When people do like, when you're in primary school and you make like a little OK circle with one hand, and then the other hand like is a pointing finger that goes through. Yeah, right. Got it.
Through the hole.
Well, my explanation of like, if we're both bottoms is like 2 circle symbols, like one circle on one hand, one circle on the other hand, and then like push them together in the middle. They don't fit. And I thought that my coworker like completely understood what that meant because it's very graphic. Like, I don't think there's much more explanation needed, right?
Look, I've had to explain this occasionally to people because that just to me kind of looks like sex between people with 2 vaginas. They don't always have to scissor, Andrew. He just keeps making obscene gestures. He's enjoying it. No, but what I was trying to explain to somebody once about why something wouldn't work, because someone else had said, I was trying to explain to my friend why, that the fact that this guy and I were both bottoms or both tops meant that we wouldn't work. And this other one's going, but why? I don't understand. And I was like, because one of them takes it and one of them gives it. And if they both insist on giving it and one of them's not taking it, there's something not adding up there.
Well, maybe they are the terms that I should have used, because I found out that like 6 months after this discussion, my coworkers still had no idea what I was talking about.
I do find myself usually not employing dirty hand signals, but I do find myself trying to explain to people, because what I get fairly regularly at work, I haven't had it in a little while because I think they all got sick of me explaining the same thing, was every time some of my coworkers would be really overt and really gross about really leering at like a female customer or a coworker or something. And they go on in obscene terms about how she looked. And I go, this is not appropriate. They go, you're just not attracted to women, so you don't understand. And I kept saying, guys, no, I'm bisexual, right? Like, I keep telling you that. I'm like, I don't have to degrade someone to find them attractive. And like, I think they got sick of hearing it.
So then they decided just not to talk about people in front of you anymore.
Pretty much.
You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam.
Empty Closet Radio, 9 p.m. Tuesdays, 101.9 Coast FM.
101.9 Coast FM, you're in the Empty Closet with Andrew and Sam. Now, Sam, we're recording. I feel the need to explain to people that we record the show a little bit beforehand. Tonight, we're recording it like about 2 minutes before it goes to air. And we are recording it usually at one of our houses. So tonight, we're at Sam's house, and in Sam's bedroom, there is a calendar with, modern day superheroes, I will say, Sam. Real life superheroes. It's the Firefighters calendar. For anyone who has never seen the Firefighters calendar, it is as pervy as you think it might be.
This year's is extra awesome because they're also fundraising for the RSPCA, so there are puppies in the calendar.
Sam, I must say I've looked at every page of that calendar and hardly seen any puppies. But what I have seen is somebody spilled baby oil all over their models, all over them.
Now, the reason that we are discussing this calendar is not because we're entreating you to go out and buy them, although if you are going to buy a pervy calendar, this one fundraises for good things. But Andrew has been looking and going on and on about how homoerotic this calendar is. And I said, well, not really, because, you know, for anyone who's attracted to men, so ladies and non-binary people who are attracted to stereotypically masculine men are going to really enjoy this calendar too. And Andrew's like, no, there's got to be a difference between porn for the ladies and porn for the gay boys.
And we still haven't decided what the actual difference is.
I think that beyond whatever magazine it appears in, like whatever the primary readership or viewership of that page or site or whatever is, I don't think that there is a difference. I think there is a difference between, say, lesbian porn targeted at women and lesbian porn targeted at men, because one of them has much more realistic orgasms and much better treatment of women, generally speaking, also known as feminist porn.
Yeah, but you're talking like porn as in like videos where there's like action happening?
No, I'm talking, if I'm taking, there's that too, but if I'm taking photos and I'm like, I really want these to appeal to, heterosexual men, I'm going to pose women differently than I would if I'm going to try and appeal to the broader lesbian community. Even though there's plenty of lesbians who are like, yeah, let's go for that objectification. There's lots of lesbians who are uncomfortable with it. I know that there are body image issues within the gay male community, but I'm still not convinced that this is a different photo than you would take for one targeted at men or women.
You're probably right. Either way you look at it, they're just like really buff boys holding like really heavy hoses.
Oh, I have to tell you, even cuter than the puppy pictures. The first time I ever got one of these calendars, because I really like that they fundraise. But the first one I ever got, I was given by another person called Sam who'd had it signed, because quite often you buy them off the boys in the calendar. And this particular one, the signature that the page was on was this guy, and he had his, yellow fireman's pants and the red suspenders slung over his shoulders and no shirt and a helmet and a fire hose. But then he had his tiny little son, who would have been about 4, in tiny little fireman's pants, tiny little suspenders, a little helmet with a tiny fire hose shoot, and they just looked so happy. Like it was clearly a really happy, cheery shoot. It was the cutest photo ever, Andrew.
One day maybe I will meet these firefighters that you buy the calendar off. That's about where I stopped listening. I was like, yes, I would buy a calendar off him.
So, you're on 101.9 Ghost FM. You're in the empty closet with Andrew and Sam. Andrew is now flustered.
You walked into the room and now my heart's been stolen.
Empty Closet Radio. Follow us on Twitter.
Can I be the one you talk about in all your stories? Can I be held?
101.9 Coast FM, you're in the empty closet with Andrew and Sam. That's pretty much all I've got time for here, Sam, and we're going to run out of time. So, if you would like to catch up on any of the things that we've talked about, make sure you do hit us up on the podcast. Use your favourite podcasting app, however you like to listen. Just search for Empty Closet Radio, hit the subscribe button to make sure that you do get all of our latest episodes as soon as they go up online. And you know what? I'll let you in on a little secret. Sometimes you can get the podcast before it's even on air, like before it goes on to the FM radio. Unbelievable. So make sure you check that out. We've also got lots of social media. Whatever social media you're on, just search for Empty Closet Radio. Hit the like button or the follow thing or whatever it is, and you'll be able to be kept up to date with us.
You've taken all the info from me. You're on 101.9 Coast FM. You're in the empty closet with Andrew and Sam. Sam has nothing more to say.
At the start, I was lost, I was waiting. Had the brakes on my heart, but now I'm racing. Feel the sun, take it in, oh, I'm away.
Thanks for listening to The Empty Closet, brought to you by 1019 Coast FM Cairns.